It's back to the bubbles again. Welcome to Galactic Earth Fusion Mission Upgrade, the show that discusses the normal, the paranormal, the natural, the supernatural, the organic to know the inorganic, the weird, the wonderful, all things outrageous, strange, upbeat, and cutting edge. Broadcasting to you from the Spring Creek Hot Springs area. This is also what you call Land of the Sky in Western North Carolina. I'm Missy Hill, and Miles is doing things behind the scenes, but you can see what we're going to be speaking about today. And I just wanted to share some photos that I got in the middle of the night when I could not sleep last night. These are super weird. So what happens is the Aurora Borealis, these beings come to me. I feel like it's me, my plasma body self in another timeline, the Polarian Hyperborean timeline, comes to me and tells me to photograph no matter where I am. I mean, even in South Carolina, at weird times, I get these weird pictures. Now, I do have to hit enhance, but these are not AI generated. It's just enough of an enhancement to bring the color up. And I was going to give these to Miles. I mean, he's actually going to put them on his site at some point, but he can't put it on the slideshow right now. But if you can see this, it's a face here. Can you let me know in the chat, drop it down in the chat if you can see this. And when I enhance it again, it brings it out more. See that face? And I had a discussion with Christy Campbell about what that might be. Oh, it even looks creepier now when I show it on the screen here. There's something about connecting with, and not in a good way, and I'm not saying I'm in favor of this connection, with gray Nordic beings. This is a hybrid, I feel, of a gray Nordic from Orion. Drop it in the chat and see what you guys get. See how dimensionally you can actually see it's very 3D imaging, isn't it strange? And now here's the other one. Here's the initial one. And here's this one again. And I just want to give a shout out to Julia Ankerhaven because I attended her class yesterday, which was amazing for her breakaway oracle cards. Yes, it was great. And she's going to be having a part 2, another book of cards, and she previewed some of these. I'm also working on something really special, but I don't want to announce it yet. But I figured while we're waiting on Miles, I would actually pull some cards. I've got 3 different decks here. I've got her deck, I've got my Woodland Warden's deck, and I have my Rune deck. So tell me in the chat, drop it in the chat, where should I pull the card from? The top, middle, or bottom, you guys? Come on. Quickly, tell me. Nobody's saying anything. You don't say anything, it's coming from the middle. Anybody say anything? This is for all top. Okay. Oh, hello, Willard. Ooh, we've got the Russian SSP. That was something we were wondering about. Oh, but everybody said that. So maybe we're going to talk about something to do with weather that's going on in Russia. Could that be possible? This scalar technology, these weather wars, what are they doing in Russia? What are they doing in the United States? What are they doing in China? Does HARP have anything to do with any of it? What is HARP? The data centers, we'll be discussing that. We'll also be discussing gravity, which is gravity pushing or pulling, or maybe it's neither. Maybe it's an electromagnetic thing because we are in an electric universe. What do you guys think? Because when they send people to the moon, supposedly, and they have these people in these pod things, whatever they're doing, and it's making it look like they're floating. How are they doing it? What are they doing? So somebody said pull another from where? I'm going to do this one from the middle. Hi, Kat. It was great to meet you, Kat, in the physical. My cat is sleeping. He's had chicken today. He's had oyster mushrooms with dill and scrambled eggs.
Hey, what's going on here? I heard
No.
you defend. I heard you say something about Anchor Haven, right?
Yes.
I mean, she's everywhere. I've got her mug. Have you got her mug? I've got her mug.
I have a mug from Yorkshire in
I mean,
honor
oh,
of you.
Yorkshire, yeah.
And look at my shirt.
Are we meant to be? Oh, that's the Yellow Submarine Beatles.
The Beatles. I want to hear you say it.
The
I know you're
Beatles.
Irish, but say it. Say it.
What's going on here? All this Anchor Haven, Anchor Haven. Oh, just because Anchor Haven said this and Anchor Haven says that, and Anchor Haven said this about this and all that. All I hear is Anchor Haven. I've got Anchor Haven. Are we promoting
She's
Anchor
got a
Haven?
song after her.
Are we being paid to do this?
Julia, Julia, Julia. And she didn't even know that song by the song. All I see, the song of love is something as Julia.
I've got to
She
get it
doesn't
right.
remember that song.
I think so.
She
For the
thinks it's a Mandela effect. I said, no, it's been around a while.
For the purposes of this recording, this is for entertainment purposes only.
That's true. And
I think you got to say that.
Theoretical. It's all theoretical.
Now, all this stuff, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know why I keep saying ladies and gentlemen. Most of you probably aren't gentlemen, and if you are, you don't know what it means. And this woman said, Miles, it's okay if you're late. I'll pretend you're not there. Now, I had to pretend I wasn't here. Okay. I was trying to put coffee into an Anchor Haven mug.
And what kind of coffee is it? I have Black Rifle, a patriotic place in Georgia somewhere, that makes their own coffee in a British mug.
In a British mug. British
mug. Yeah.
Listen, you got to understand it's from Yorkshire. They're better. They're right. You're wrong. And these Texans think they're the goddamn best thing in the United States of America or the Confederate or whatever it is. They're wrong. If you put a Texan against a Yorkshireman, Texan, go home now. You're not going to win the argument. And if you do win the argument, you'll be wrong, and dead wrong. And then you'll regret it for the rest of your natural and non-natural lives.
I was blowing bubbles because the other day, I don't know if you know Chloe Ariel from Australia. She's an Aussie. I had to do my hair pink in her honor because we're in a pink cult hair band, punk rock.
Look at this. Bubbles. We're blowing bubbles. We're talking about the end of the world here. We're talking about scalar energetics here. We're talking about how they manipulate the weather. We're talking about the terrifying almighty what's happened to the weather situation. And what have we got? Missy's blowing bubbles.
Because I want to be an orb at the end. I want to be in a bubble of protection.
I'll probably talk about that as well.
Yeah. Well, what do you think's going on with those pictures that I sent you of the sky? For those,
I've been too busy to see the likes of that.
For those of you just joining, let me show this again.
For those watching in black and white, the purple ball is beside the pink one.
Look at that face. That doesn't look too benevolent to me, does it? It might be pretty because it's pretty and pink.
That's your glasses reflecting off the phone.
No.
I was joking. You don't have to take your.
Look at that. I know my glasses probably are reflecting, but I want to be able to see the screen. And if I'm not answering in the chat, it's because I'm mesmerized by Miles right now. But I'll start putting up some things, and we can
soon put an end to that. Bloody hell!
Cheers, mate. Cheerio. What do you say? What is it that you say? I like to say scald. I know it's Viking.
What's that? It's that weird. It's that weird Dutch American accent you've got.
Dutch American?
Oh, it's a good accent. It's a great accent. It's a great American accent. I love it.
Yeah. It's a mix of.
It's. I think it gives you an air of responsibility and culture.
It's a mix of Northeast, the South, and the in between, which is
not the in between.
You're halfback. You're called a halfback. If you come from New Jersey, you go down to Florida, and then you come to the middle of the South, which is the mountains, North, South Carolina, Tennessee, you're called a halfback.
A halfback.
Julia, have you perfected your Southern Belle accent yet?
Well, you can ask her. I couldn't possibly comment. Well, it's great to see you, and it's good fun.
Yes, and I really want to get to this conference in November, so I'm trying to figure out what to do to manifest it and to help around it, because it's kind of overwhelming if it's
the only way to get to my conference in November from the United States is to end war, pestilence, and solve and bring about world peace and enough aircraft fuel or diesel for you to stick in the engines of the plane and come here in the first place.
Yeah, no, it's not looking good. I'd rather take a cruise actually than get on a plane.
Actually, you might have it there, because I picked up a lovely friend called Mary Ann Lou. I love that. I love that double barrel name. So she decided to go on a tour of Europe or of the Mediterranean by flying to Spain, joined a Mediterranean cruise. The Mediterranean is that hot bit with a bit of water in the middle of it. A few cultures like that, like ancient Rome and the Cathars and Greece and all that are in there somewhere. And then it went back to Florida. So she went back to Florida by sea.
Wow, that's cool.
I think that's probably the future.
Oh, this is a joke from Eric. I have not succeeded at dating, so no way. I want a date a center. If you rent a center, does that make me date a John? Anchor. Okay, that's all a joke. I didn't even get that.
A lot of yeah. That's more like a bad Irish joke on a Tuesday in the back streets of Belfast.
In a pub, in an Irish pub.
In a pub. In Belfast, we have pubs, okay?
Yeah. I know. I was in Ireland, but not Northern Ireland. I was in.
You didn't go up to the Black
Ireland.
North then?
The food was quite good in these pubs. I was shocked.
Well, I'd be shocked because I had an American girlfriend, woman, type person, and being from California and Palm Springs, she was all into her caffeine-free this or decaf that. Actually, the one thing she needed to have was full-fat milk. She had to have
she was one of those bulletproof coffee people, probably.
Coffee. Yeah, no, that's the wrong accent.
Yeah, coffee.
And she wanted a thing called, she's really, really choosy. You know, she's one of these foreign people who wanted to have vegetables in her food.
I found vegetable juice at a festival in Ireland. It was like beets and carrots and celery. It's like the stuff that I go to my local place called Earth Fair here in Asheville, where they make the juice. They do juice.
Yeah, it's horrendous. The Irish have discovered how to cook vegetables, because what you put them on, if you're putting on a turkey or like a whole hog or whatever, the first thing you put on are the vegetables, and 3 hours later they're ready to serve. If there's any of them left.
I made a meal out of the breakfast because I told you about the Guinness bread, how I was in love with Guinness bread and going to these places.
They didn't have that when I started drinking Guinness. This is all a modern, it's for all you woke people who can't take a Guinness. All these woke people, we've got to have a half Guinness. No such thing as a half of Guinness. You drink 6 pints, that's it, and that gets you going.
Oh my God.
And then you have a thing.
Delicious. These breakfasts were so delicious. They'd have the little what do you call those eggs? The poached eggs or the hard boiled eggs that comes in the little stand.
Yeah.
The little stand, and then the coffee was really good, and oh my God!
And I know what's happened is that. A lot of really talented people in Ireland did a thing called grow up, stay in Ireland. Then he went on holiday, and then he brought things like cuisine, whatever that is, and things like lasagna and And spaghetti, for years, for decades, everybody in the British Isles thought that spaghetti grew on trees. The BBC did this April Fool in the days of black and white TV. And for those watching in the United States, we still had black and white TV into the 70s, okay? So there was this report made by this extremely respectable BBC journalist called, I think, Alan Whitaker. He was an extremely fine man. He had glasses, and he was intelligent. And he did this extremely important report from Italy. And there we had this whole thing where they had these spaghetti trees. So there was all this sort of spaghetti hanging off the trees. And then Mrs. Boglione, or whatever her name was, went and collected the spaghetti. And then they laid it out in the kitchen and then let it dry. And then they had it. That's where we got spaghetti. And that was an April Fool. And everybody in England believed it. So they wanted to get spaghetti trees.
Wow.
Right. This is just poppycock. So we better get on with this, I suppose.
Yeah. So first of all, comment on my photos. What do you feel they are?
I haven't seen the photos. All I've seen is coming off your thing. Maybe hold on.
It's
we had a situation where we were dealing with, for the conference, okay, but for the next few moments, we may talk seriously. Take necessary precautions. So, people haven't been blown up there. Let's get these off my phone. Gee, was that on Messenger? Yeah. That is clearly, I think it's the forehead of an elephant.
Okay.
Look, I had to make something up.
It doesn't matter what it is.
Well, I know.
Why do you think these colors are happening? What is changing with the particles in the sky, with the plasma, with the the geometric?
This is when Mike Emery. This is when Mike Emery is talking about. But what's happened is, in the olden days, in other words, last week, we had crimson red sunset, rich, lovely red sunset. And then we had this, when red sky at night, shepherd's delight. Okay?
There's a
red
song
sky in the
that
morning, shepherd's warning.
Night,
okay?
Red skies at night. Whoa.
That's because we had red skies, okay? But we've gone pink. The sun itself, because it's now in Maunder minimum and has been, I think, for at least two solar cycles. We're in at least the third of a Maunder minimum, going on for another, and it's going to get much, much more severe into the next two Maunder solar cycles. I told you it was going to get serious. So the point is that the sun, the actual energy that we see in our visual spectrum, is getting more intense. So the blue end of the sun spectrum has gone from 5,500 Kelvin. If you know what Kelvin is, it's color temperature, right? Do you understand what color temperature is? When you get a light bulb, if you're an artist.
Yes.
And it's heading towards 6,500 to 8,000 Kelvin. Okay, that's the level of blueness. So there's more blue that's coming into our atmosphere, and that makes the deep red pink.
This is an old one. See this one? That's the blue too. Depending on what, usually when I face the north, I think it is, I get the blue, I think.
Well, this is a very serious issue, because the Aurora Borealis has always been really a sort of a deep, dull green.
Yes.
Okay. So if we because our magnetic field is severely altered now, we are talking about a North Pole which is off from the north by about 40 degrees now, 38.9 to 30 degrees on. And that means the North Pole, the magnetic north and the magnetic south have left Australia, Antarctica. The south has left Antarctica and the north is way over. And so the maximum protection from the Earth's magnetic for the Earth's magnetic field is over Thailand and the Pacific region, or the Indian Ocean region. The least protection is over the Atlantic region, which is basically means that where we are, i.e. the European, African, and South American countries, we are being exposed to more radiation than the other side of the planet. Okay, that means that there's more radiation hitting the upper atmosphere, and because that's aggressively stimulating the upper atmosphere is getting all sort of hurt. So that retains more water molecules. Okay, so as a consequence of that, when it's going to rain a hell of a lot more, right? And you know, I see the question coming. I can see the question coming. When it's colder, it's going to have very severe winters.
Right. Yeah, that's why that, what did they call that? Polar vortex storm. Because, you know, when I first started seeing these photos of the aurora borealis, I said, that's got to be AI generated.
No.
With these pink skies. And people said, no. And then that color pink, like my hair and this.
And then it turned blue. Over the observatories at Tenerife, which is basically a group of islands off Africa owned by the Spanish, they had red aurora over, and that's way down into the mid-Atlantic, right? Mm-hmm. That is an extremely dangerous indicator. So what I think they've been doing is they've been engineering something for quite some time now, all this year, to make sure there is a massive shortage of water by cooking the atmosphere with scalar energetics, and that is planned to absolutely wipe out our water. And we've already had like a 44% yield on the crops here, which all matured really early, but they didn't have the water to make into bigger yield.
But I'm thinking, you know, this year has not been a severe hurricane year because, you know, Western North Carolina.
Well, that's because they're taking the water out of the atmosphere.
Yeah, they're calling it El Nino, though.
No, the El Nino is, from what I gather, you got the El Nino, and you got the that's the current that they have anyway. They just you know it's you got the Pacific currents and the Atlantic currents. I mean, where we are here, we only survive because of the Gulf Stream, that warm water coming right across the Atlantic, going past the coast of Ireland and all that, and right up into Norway and past the north coast of Norway, which is why Norway can you know, and these countries in the north, because where we are, where the British Isles are, it's the same latitude as Port Churchill in Hudson Bay, right?
Wow, yeah.
Which is permafrost winter, right? The only way that we would survive up here is if that for that, but that's just basic geography.
My prediction is, see, they learned that they destroyed too much by, you know, the DEWs they sent for Hurricane Helene in Western North Carolina. But this way, you know, they don't have to have a hurricane. They can wait and have a snowstorm.
What you're dealing with is far too local. I better get on with this because this is Tom Bearden, Colonel Tom Bearden, 1980s into the 90s. He gave a detailed presentation. I'm going to move it there. Right. Oh, you don't see that. Let's go back. So I'll give you this, and then this is very, very important. This because this is the physics. These are the physics books that people must get, and that's what they look like. What you've got there is Fer de Lance, Briefing on Soviet Electromagnetic Weapons by Tom Bearden. That's the man on the right. He's a really, really good guy. And he was dealing at the absolute leading edge of the technical aspects of the science of how they were getting this thing called a woodpecker signal. What the Russians were doing was they were using the shortwave band to do a whole pile of pulses right across the whole shortwave band. That's a multi-frequency scattering, and they did it from a number of places, so you could have a patchwork of let's get this on. Let's get it on. Well, they should there. Okay, what you see there are squares in the upper clouds. You see those squares? Okay, so this is Tom Bearden. And then down in 1999, at the end of this book, or back to this book, in 1999, the Earth's first strategic subspace war was silently fought and won. So over 20 in the late 90s, we were fighting a war of energetics, and that involved weather engineering. Right. Just to get across to people, yes, there's the question there is, all this also affects biological weapons. You can transmit diseases, but we're just going to keep this into a narrow view. Okay, the hunt for 0 point. People have heard of 0 point energy. Just so you understand what that means, what you've got are a lot of summed vectors, okay? And the sum of those vectors, in other words, if you add all those together, they equal 0, okay? The basic principle of 0 point energy, in other words, is to take all those zeros, which are stable as a 0 vector, is to take or disturb one of the vectors, and like a pack of cards, the whole lot collapses, and that gives you 0 point energy. That provides subtly a massive flow of energy, and then it all restabilizes again. Right. So this is the older systems are excluded by physics. Dynamic 0 vector systems are not considered in ordinary general relativity, classical electromagnetics, or quantum mechanics. In other words, the science of 0 point energy is deliberately excluded from our textbooks, which means officially it doesn't exist. Okay. Now, getting to another key thing. This is very, very important. In about
Miles, can you make your presentation bigger? They're asking. I don't know how to do that.
You need to put that full screen.
Is it not full screen?
No, you're still sharing 2 screens.
Ooh, what do I do?
I think you need to change that on your preview. Okay, you're now full screen. You got to make me full screen.
Somebody help me!
Oh my God! No, jeez! Don't! For God's sake, don't take yourself off air. Don't do it, please.
No, I don't want to screw. I don't want to screw this up. I don't want to screw it up.
Okay, well, I will just word it. This is too complicated for people to read, right? Okay.
Yeah.
The important thing is that I'm showing you the books. I'm only going to indicate and tell you things. Okay. There's a lot of very important names here. Maxwell's equations. Okay. These were very detailed things about how you explained and understood basic electricity. Okay. So these are in a lot of very technical words. In order to describe this for physicists and scientists, it was then translated to what we call not algebra, but differential equations and things like that. All those horrible terms you might have heard at school about how you explain a formula. Okay. Now the point about this is around about 1880. This guy called Heaviside only translated part of the original Maxwell equations. The term here is called truncated. It's a nice word for saying censored. So the fundamental physics of how you make electricity had most of the extremely important terms discarded. And that gave you 0 point energy. That gave you free energy. That gave you faster than light travel, anti-gravity, and all that stuff was deliberately taken out of the physics. So when you went to university and were taught all about electricity, you left with one hand tied behind your back and most of the cards in the deck missing. Okay? So they engineered flawed engineers who were deliberately mistaught the full theory of how you make electricity, which means that we ended up making electricity with only we ended up every time we designed circuits, and every time we designed the way that we make electricity, we did it wrong. And we did it wrong deliberately so you could continually pump fuel, coal or gas or whatever into the generator to generate the next cycle to produce electricity. And that was based on flawed, deliberately flawed and gerrymandered physics, okay? So that's important. So the physics that people are taught, the way that engineers are educated so they don't know how the rest works. Okay. And this is where the likes of Stephen Greer and other people say, oh, this is impossible human physics. It must be alien. Therefore, the aliens must have the whole thing about this. Okay. So just getting to the point, I know you can't read it, so I'll read this out. Every electrical power system ever built is and has been powered by electrical energy freely extracted from the seething vacuum exchange with the source dipole in the system. Okay, that's complicated. But the engineers and scientists have designed and built only those electrical systems which self-enforce Lorenz's symmetrical regaging. So in simple terms, they've taught the scientists to bugger up the system, to make systems which are flawed. The time for energy scientists and engineers to correct this procedure and cease this inane practice is long overdue. So the universities and the people who train and educate the scientists are deliberately educating scientists with flawed and gerrymandered equations. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So they then leave the universities and they go into industry and they're playing with one hand behind their back. And this is where all this flawed science, these utterly stupid, deliberately engineered to fail windmills and the solar panels are all leading us into a catastrophic fail situation. All right? Does that make sense?
It does.
So we
how
need
does this connect in with what Tesla discovered?
Yeah. So that means that the highly educated and brilliant people at the top of the profession have learned the wrong, flawed physics. So we need to change that. And the key to this is always at the universities where the people are trained. They get the wrong things, then they know, well, when I was trained at this university, you're wrong. They'll be on television and they'll say, well, this is just rubbish. This is impossible. This can't be done. All that sort of stuff. It's wrong. And we know it's wrong. And we're saying it's wrong. And the universities that mistrain and miseducate are professionals in the industry, the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers, and all those sort of very high, most of them are Masons and whatever. Well, who knows? But this means that the variety of the educated people in the world are literally talking rubbish. But,
and all this military stuff where they say it's like anti-gravity and all that, it's actually a different technology than what they're telling.
Well, forget about this. Right now, we're going to interject here. Hello, I'm interjecting here. Okay. As we know, Nick Pope passed away fairly recently.
Right.
Okay. Now, this bit of information comes from a mad professor type person called Professor Simon. Right. And he's an English person and he lives in France. and he does his YouTube thing from it's not a bunker, but it's a French wine store. In other words, he's in the basement with where the wine would be. So his persona is that of a wacky scientist, right? Now, what he released, he's very, very stuck in the established physics. He won't go past out of this. But what he was able to tell us was that Nick Pope's father. Now, I don't have the. I should have modified the this PowerPoint to show this particular photograph. Nick Pope's father was in the early stages of the SDI, Strategic Defense Initiative. In other words, some kind of energy weapon that would be able to shoot down incoming nuclear warheads. Okay? Now, the way the cookie crumbles on this is Britain contributes a lot with the United States at the high level of industry and trade and all that sort of stuff. Everybody shares and stuff like that. So, but that meant that Nick Pope's father was involved with not established physics. He was involved in, you mentioned it, electric universe physics. Okay. Now there's a fundamental difference between electric universe model of the atom and the established model of the atom. Once again, our models are flawed deliberately, right? So the long and short of it is that if you get the atomic structure of an iron atom, a ferrous atom, let's call it like this, okay? This is an iron atom, an Fe atom that you find in iron ore, okay? So what happens is with the electric universe principle is that at certain times in the rock where you dig up the stuff, the raw ore, because of compression and the way that things happen in deep crusts, the iron atom is collapsed down on itself, and we call it a very dense atom, and we call it uranium. Okay, so uranium is basically an iron atom. So when you make strategic nuclear weapons, you're using uranium. Okay, I'm talking in broad concepts here. So a nuclear device is made of basically lumps of iron who've been crushed by in the Earth's crust, right? And then you make that, and then if the reason why it becomes unstable is because it wants to break apart, and that's where you get a bang. Okay, that's where you get nuclear weapons to work. So the point is that what Nick Pope's father was working on, he was working on energy weapons which would destabilize that in the missiles, incoming nuclear missiles, so you could shoot a beam weapon to the missiles, and then that would destabilize the uranium atom, and it would, bingo, become iron. In other words, it would not detonate. It would hit the ground and go thud, and probably, cause a crater. But that's the basic, simple principle of it. And people like Hutchison, the Hutchison effect and things like that is all about stabilizing crystal structures and atoms and stuff like that. And then they spring apart, and then they're useless, or they fall to dust, right?
Yeah, I remember you talking about that with Rob, and I found that so fascinating. It's like hard to wrap my mind around because
So what happened?
So wrong.
Yeah, well, the whole thing about the Rendlesham Forest UFO events, what you've got to understand that for a very long time, the armed forces have been dealing with the ETs in our bases and doing deals behind the scenes and keeping a lot of stuff behind it. That's why they can't have disclosure. If disclosure has been, we've been dealing with all these different ETs, we've been allowing them to abduct and massacre and reproduce hundreds of thousands and millions of us just do what they want and so forth. So, for instance, when I've got a witness who's been in the underground tunnels underneath Warminster, which in the 1960s was a massive UFO hotspot in the 1960s here in Wiltshire. She explained, I was with Draco Prime in the underground tunnels. So you got Draco Prime in a tunnel tube train with a woman who was bred on the Southern African baby farms. So where we are, breeding humans for the purposes of God knows what and handing them off to Draco Prime in their hundreds of thousands. And this has been going on for, God knows how long. Okay? They're not going to tell you that. It doesn't do good press. So the point is that means that the Rendlesham Forest UFO events, there were aliens visited DARPA in Farnborough in 1974. They got into the drawing office and just did whatever they like to do. In 1977, there were a whole pile of landings, very similar to the 1980 landings, and that was at Rendlesham Forest between Bentwaters and the Woodbridge bases. And there were 5 disc types and 5 sort of like triangular types, all landed there. A whole bunch of school children saw all this stuff, but nobody's talking about that. Most people don't want to hear what the on-site British witnesses saw over those 4 nights, because Charles Holt was there to take charge and manage the information if anything was to happen. He was not deputy base commander. If he was deputy base commander, his mugshot would have been up in the base entrances with all the other senior staff. So Charles Holt was there to make sure the right information got out. Larry Warren beat him to it. He got a whole lot of stuff out, and ever since then there's been blood on the dance floor over that. But it means that the Rendlesham Forest UFO events involved SSP, Secret Space Program technology, with aliens, with other ETs. One craft was landed. A young woman saw them walking about at Capel Green. That's why they don't want anybody to know about Capel Green. That's why the movie Capel Green has been heavily interrupted. I don't think we'll ever see a full, proper version of what that movie was meant to be about. But that's another film about Rendlesham Forest, which has been, stopped in its tracks. Everybody's having a hissy fit and a tantrum about it. And the longer that goes on, the less of that is ever going to see. And then others are saying, oh, that's in blah, blah, blah. So one of the key things about Rendlesham Forest is this particular craft had landed, and yet only about an hour and a half or whatever, there was already a transport aircraft ready to come in and land and take it away. That transport aircraft would have been on prep at an airfield, probably in Germany, and would have been prepped maybe 5 or 6 hours before all these events started to happen. So they were expecting all this stuff to happen. There's also a space shuttle nose cone in one of the hangars, and the lady who got the photograph of that to the 2 British investigators, Dot Street and Brenda Butler, she was on a plane back to the States the next day. But we have the photograph. We have the photograph of a space shuttle nose cone in a hangar, and you can see where the space shuttle nose cone has been sitting in the water after the shuttle came in and crashed and broke up on its way to try and land at Woodbridge, which is this very long runway, which was designed for World War II craft to come in and crash, or it was it was as far east as you could get in Britain. So that's been there since World War II. So we had spacecraft flying, we had space shuttles flying when nobody knew they were flying, and all that sort of stuff going on, right? So what the whole point about Nick Pope's father is that he was involved with Strategic Defense Initiative, and he needed to test those weapons, those beam weapons, whatever they were, needed to be tested. So they put 24 nukes into the nuclear storage bunkers at Woodbridge or Rendlesham or Bentwaters. And this is where the witnesses see these objects coming in, and they were shooting beams into the storage bunkers. And then afterwards, oh my God, all these weapons have been defused. They've all been neutralized. Oh, what a terrible thing. And then, of course, the British government, well, we didn't know anything about this. And if we did know something about this, we'd only allow them to have 12. So obviously, this is just a load of bunkum. In other words, the usual protect your back and deny everything, right? So that meant that that means that the Ministry of Defense is operating with one hand in the we don't have anything situation. Oh, nothing going on here. But on the other hand, we've got Electric Universe high technology, which can neutralize incoming nukes. Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
Now, the point about this was the Russians also had their nuclear bunkers neutralized because they were burying hot iron beside the launch sites. Hot iron is what happens when the nuclear warhead is defused, is electric universe sprung back into iron, the uranium is sprung back into iron, and then it's no use, so it's just a lump of iron. But it still has residual radiation, which is what we call hot iron. So the Russians lost their nukes, and the U.S. Air Force, the Americans lost their nukes, right? So somebody, i.e., somebody such as Nick Pope's father, who was involved with this SDI, so that meant that the Strategic Defense Initiative technology worked. They had to test it on something, and they tested it at Rendlesham Forest UFO events that night. Okay. I submit that what was going on there, that one of these craft was in trouble. It needed help. So they came down and landed. The Americans came in with the transport aircraft, took it away, and then they had to create all these cover stories. I mean, that area, there are the British Telecom building, which has been dealing with really dodgy stuff. There's a whole pile of tunnels everywhere. Everybody's doing something. And it's all involving, at some point, various types of ETs, all involved with our armed forces at some level or other, right? That was explained to me in simple, direct terms in 1994. So all this disclosure stuff is bollocks.
Right.
They want to keep us in the 3D stupid flawed science that we've got. They're never going to tell us how we can generate 0 point energy and power everything. God forbid these electric companies. I mean, here they all changed their water meters just before the summer with smart water meters because they knew we were going to have a dry summer. These people are absolutely treacherous, murderous bastards.
They're not even people, I don't think so.
Well, exactly.
Tell us how Tesla fits into this.
Well, no, this is the whole point. Is Tesla a cover for Tartarian technology? And there's a guy called Guy. It's not a guy. Hamilton. He's speaking at the lovely Danny Henderson's conference in September.
That's coming up soon, right?
Yeah, it's coming up soon. And I was talking to the lovely Danny Henderson. She wears high heels, and I've noticed. And right.
I'm finally friends with her on Facebook now.
So that means we're now getting into how they're doing this with the weather stuff. And we're going to explain this as simple as we can and give some modern sort of events about it. And it's called Wilson's Cloud Radials, right? Now, the point about this is these are what we call Wilson Cloud Radials. And the bottom line is you have a series of energized clouds in linear form, all bunched up into one zone as an activated radial pattern. And here we have them. When they start, they'll be in very fine clouds like that, and then they'll start to dissipate. And then you'll start seeing black centers to the main clouds. And then that gets complicated. And then as it starts to dissipate, they all start waving around and looking like that. And that is, we're talking in I'm talking in round figures here. Okay. I'm talking to generalize what you need to look for when you see these cloud radials. And you'll notice that in the center, there's some kind of a ball of energy, which is the center of the activated node of this late lattice. And so there they are in bigger terms. These are from 1988 in Canada. Okay. So what we're talking about is a set of energetics. And another one here is this shows a jet aircraft coming into view, and its vapor trail will be determined by the size of the energy wave from these radial patterns. So this is a signature what you're looking for. You're looking for something with a lot of radials going into a central zone, and in the center zone, that's where the action is. Okay, that's what they're doing something in that zone to give a problem to whatever's underneath that. And remember, that's on the horizon, so it could be 30 miles away or whatever, depending. So that's what we call Wilson's cloud radials. And then one of the other things you'll see, this scratch on the smooth blue sky, okay? And what have we had all summer but smooth blue skies? Now, speeding on to right now, this is a Wilson cloud radial pattern, and you see that's been on for quite some time, and those radials are on the horizon. Now, this is complicated because they've improved on the technology, and there's an awful lot of busy stuff going on there. You can see these long, thin radials pulling these clouds together into a central region, okay? And you can even see that classic sort of split cloud as illustrated in the previous slide. So this is what's been going on here.
What about the chemtrail spraying? Are they
but the chemtrails are there to add to this story. So this is something you've got to understand. I'm trying to get this down onto the basics, and then you've got a whole mix of stuff put into this. Okay, the chemtrails are there to provide another ingredient to this mixture. We're not good. We're not eating our cake without icing here.
Right. Yeah.
Do you understand about that? Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to show you the basic principles here and how a complicated sky has got a common feature, okay? And it's based on scalar energetics, weather warfare. That's the term. And this is, okay, so we've got, let's get this back on. So we'll get this, get through this. So you can see those are radial thin. What's pulling those clouds into a straight line? These are all pulled into a straight line. Now maybe there will be seeded chemtrails in there to add to the mix. Okay, we'll go through these again. Now here we have really this is very high frequency grid pattern, which I showed you at the very start, and they're at 90 degrees. That old grid pattern of natural clouds. This is a very, very busy, very high intensity and energetic field of energy. And here we have again, this is a very complex pattern involving linear clouds and these intense high frequency energy waves. Okay. So this is that's set close up. That is not a natural phenomenon. Okay. Now the point about this is happening during the day when the sun is beginning to set. So for the rest of the day, we have a deep blue sky. And then as the sun begins to set and the moisture starts sort of what moisture there is there starts to form, you start seeing it in those clouds. All right. Is that making sense for people? Mm-hmm. So again, you've got these very long clouds with this herringbone type structure inside the clouds, right? And that's at the end of the day. The very, very complicated herringbone features, and you can see there's lots of alternating bright and light energy functions there, just like a bar magnet with an energy field. Okay. So the other thing,
then you got your chemtrail to the left.
Well, that's it. You see that's part of it, right?
Yeah.
So they're spreading a mix into the cloud. Now, one of the things that people are aware of, see, there's the energy pattern as the sun sets. But anybody who's read the early books by Preston Nichols of the Montauk Project will be aware of DOR. That's DOR clouds, downwardly spiraling orgone energy clouds, or DOR clouds. And these are really black clouds at a much lower level. These are quite small, these clouds, I remember a couple of Christmases ago in the Norwegian fjord, the Oslo fjord. They were going to get when you bring the temperatures down, you're going to get horrendous amounts of snowfall. Again, you got those patterns up there on this side, and let's see about that. Then you can see on this, those door clouds came up the Oslo fjord, and we had a meter of snow in an hour.
Oh my God.
And my friend Anna, the dear late Anna, she went out to, she told me, Miles, go and get your camera, look at this, because she knew that weather, that was not normal. This was very, very odd, very strange. So Miles, he said, Mike, get a camera and see this. She knew that there's something very wrong with this. So this is, again, you can see, I mean, look at the stress, look at the energy field in that. Look at those clouds being ripped into thin shards. There's a huge amount of energy there to pull those clouds into a very, very heavy field. This is a massively intense energy field, right? That's all along there. And you can see up there on this side of it, again, the linear clouds, part of the lattice that they've got, and then they've activated it in this region here. That's why those are in a radial pattern, and whatever is over there in that region further on, that's under attack. They're doing something there.
Does this have anything to do with the sun being completely white now instead of yellow?
Well, this is the whole point. The sun, this is another thing with Maunder minimum. The sun's frequency, okay, there's another photograph of that. You can see that again, thin, and okay, can people
and is
see
this
that?
Making the sky blue?
No, it's making it blue because it's taking away the moisture.
Oh, that's why. Okay.
That's why there's no rain. There's no rain right across the northern hemisphere.
A lot of rain. Like right now, it's a lot of rain here. It's either dry or a lot of rain.
Well, this is the point. Since last Wednesday, something radical has happened. So anyway, that's that full horizon of radial patterns. And then just behind us, the weather is perfectly normal. That's in the Vale of Pusey. And these are the books, Free Energy Generation, Circuits and Schematics. If you want to get those books, if you want to get the book, The Final Secret of Free Energy, that's the secret. It's a small book. This explains it to you. So one book explains the theory. The other book gives you circuits and schematics. And then we have something which is anybody who's been to the crop circles, anybody who's been around Wiltshire over the years in the Vale of Pusey, there is a lot of crop circles, also a lot of deep underground facilities. I think it's pretty well known that there is an emergency city deep under the chalk in the event of nuclear or whatever, and there's a town there so that if people have to go there, that's where you're going to live for until the nuclear Armageddon all goes away, whatever. So that's not a big deal. What is the big deal is pocket dimensions and multiple different types of ET bases in the areas around this area. And we'll switch back to that. So this is the Temple of Apollo. And that has got a structure which goes deep under the ground and it was designed by the same designer that designed the pyramid at the Louvre. And in this area, there's a tunnel underneath. There's a whole pile of other things. And other people have informed us that there is this is not news to a lot of people who've been paying attention to where the crop circles are happening. And that is a stargate, an interdimensional gate under the east field, that massive field, and that's where the Led Zeppelin album was made all those years ago. We've got a whole new generation of circle makers. We're having to teach them how to make them properly because they're making a lot of mistakes. So myself, I was fortunate to get Matthew Williams, the most hated person in the crop circle community, because when the circle makers are out there doing things, they get ideas. They get received designs and they go and make them. What we've got to do is get the circle makers who are making them get their skill set up and running, so they don't make too many mistakes. And I did a 2.5 hour special workshop with Matthew on the techniques that you've got to learn on how to do all those different designs, because the original teams that were involved with making these were involved with US intelligence and MI5, and they needed to be skilled when they were given a design. They needed to make sure that design was made properly, and then what they were looking for is they wanted to see which members of the public could see particular designs in the formations. And then the point about that is they would then be able to. A lot of people were then chosen and brought into the secret space program because they could see very complex designs in fifth or sixth dimensions, and they needed people who could solve equations and do mathematics in that. And one extremely important example of that is a lady called Selena, and she's from Norway, and she's spoken at bases 2025 and bases 2026, and she could see these complex designs because she is getting downloads of information involving very complex mathematics and designs. So this is in helping to enhance people's perception. A lot of the crop circles were about was about seeing who's seeing what, and then you'd be quietly brought into the program. And there's
Oh,
also
wow.
one involved, but the basic idea that these are made by aliens, in a cookie cutter landing, and it can't possibly see what they're doing. And I was there when a farmer came in and explained to the very lovely Monique, who had a wonderful crop circle exhibition this year. It was very lovely, fantastic. And Monique is a Dutch lady, very fine Dutch lady, very tall, very attractive lady, very good looking woman. Oh, um, she put on her first presentation in crop circles, and she has a wonderful exhibition center in Honey Street, which is available if you want to, even off season. It's available if you want to look at all those magnificent pictures and art that she's got very well displayed in Honey Street. And the Honey Street Cafe is open 7 days a week. And if you don't want to go to the cafe, there is the Barge Inn, which has got a campsite and everything, and there's going to be lots of fun there this September and October. And that's where the original Barge Inn happened. That's where a lot of the crop circle maps roll up in the day. So it's all really great fun. But the point is that there are ETs out of dimension. There are ET bases there. Very fine lady called Dusky Edwards, which I don't actually have a picture of. I filmed her finding an ET gray base where there was the sunflower crop circle in 2023. There's a wonderful crop circle in what we call oilseed rape, and that plant with the yellow blossom. If you saw that when they harvest it, you wouldn't want to have any anyway. And she picked up grays on that. So there's places where there are grays, and there was a team which did 10 years of research, about 20 of them, and we'd hoped to have two of them talk at the conference. They were dealing with interdimensional ETs on a 24-hour basis in broad daylight or in the middle of the night. They were interfacing with these ETs, and that was near Silbury Hill, West Kennet, Longbarrow, and Avebury. So there's an awful lot of stuff going on around that area. There's also meant to be a huge craft buried at Cher Hill, or Cherrill, and that's deep in the below the soil, and it may not be in this dimension. Okay, that's how they hide the pocket dimension stuff. So there's an awful lot of very interesting stuff going on. Dusky was taken out on her wedding day earlier this year. It was a huge shock for everybody, including her partner, who became her husband. She was taken out just as she signed the wedding,
Oh my God.
and then she sat back all happy, and then had a brain thing, and boom. So
Oh,
that's what's going on. And the point is that in those books which Tom Bearden wrote, what they did was they explained how the Chernobyl disaster happened. Okay, what was happening was that the Russians, way back in the 80s, were heavily targeting the weather system over the United States as a weapon, as a weapon of war. This is energetic warfare, scalar energetic warfare. And so they were turning and moving the jet streams to cause a huge amount of damage to the agriculture in America. So Tom Bearden and his team put their money where their mouth was, and so no, sorry, just saying that. But what they did was they used and there's a guy there's an American here still with us called Mike Emery. He lives near Liverpool in England here. So what they did was they generated a reverse pulse using the Los Angeles sewer system, the groundwater system, right? So that is a massive antenna. So they were able to transmit a reverse pulse to the Russian antenna. That caused a destabilization of the power supply. And that power supply was the Chernobyl reactor, which overheated and blew up. Okay, that was the cause of the Chernobyl reactor going critical. So after that, the Russians and the Americans said, look, this technology is too dangerous and we're going to stop it. But that hasn't happened. What's happened is now bad people have taken that technology and they are using it against the whole planet. This technology could crack planets. It's a planet buster, right? Okay. So what they're using it to push the carbon dioxide agenda, to hammer the people of the earth, because they're responsible. And this is the CO2 agenda. And we're outing that using high technology, the kind of technology that Nick Pope's father was used to have these huge amounts of energy from the vacuum. You've seen the booklet. You know, if you get that booklet and read it, and you're a mad scientist, and you got a huge budget, you can create all of the stuff that's happening right now with the scalar energetics weather warfare. On this occasion, they're taking away the water moisture. They could quite easily turn a couple of dials and make it rain, or even worse, make it snow. On top of this is the extremely serious effects of the solar Maunder minimum.
Right, they could make the snow even now, right? Like in the Truman Show. But
yes.
Let's address the sun, though. Why is it white?
The sun has changed color because the energy in the sun in our visual spectrum has increased in the blue end of the spectrum.
Okay, that's what yeah.
Okay, so that's what I mean by the color temperature. The color temperature of the sun, for example, was 5,500 degrees. 5,500 Kelvin. If you got an ordinary incandescent light bulb, if the color temperature of that would be 3,000 Kelvin, which would make it very warm and sort of red in color, and that gives a lovely coal fire, warm orange. That's why we call it warm, because it's got a lot of red in it, but not too much blue. The higher the color temperature, the bluer the light.
And that's why it feels like it's burning you too.
It's burning because you're being hit with a lot of UV. The UV light's going up through the roof. And that's why they were using those horrendous LED light bulbs in cars. They were way up in the blue spectrum. All the telephones you've got, all these mobile phones,
it's all blue light.
All the organic LED tubes, that are not tubes, but the screens are very high. They've got two very high blue spectrum energy spectrum spikes, and that's deliberately designed to cause trouble and damage to your retina, because what they want to do is they want to help you as you get cataracts and go blind. They want to help you by giving you a synthetic retina, and you'll never need a mobile phone or anything because they'll have all the information that you want to see. They can control literally what you see with your retina.
Right.
In
Ooh,
fact,
creepy.
you won't actually really need an eye. It'll be that much. The cyborgs won't even need any of that. They won't need an optical eye. They'll just, they'll have a camera and it'll go straight into the remaining brain cortex of the autistic children that are being born now. There's a huge number of autistic children being born, and they are designed for going into the cyborg factories because they will interface with the cyborg human interface technology, and that will be what the cyborgs will be. They'll be the current children today. A lot of them will be or augmented human augmentation.
It's sounding like a Philip K. Dick novel, like the Minority
It's
Report.
what they've got planned. The Ministry of Defense have the augmented soldiers in their on their website. The Ministry of Defense, they've got the whole thing with the eye and all that. Lee Majors, we can rebuild you and we can have an eye. That's all in there.
Man, yeah.
Because one of the first major experiments on Skylab was the ability to grow retinas. Now, why were they growing retinas in space? Who said, oh, let's grow a retina in space? It was very successful, and they then immediately classified them. These people plan a long time ahead. But, I mean, Britain was making generated life forms for the lunar base way back in 50s. That was German technology. That they were working together. The Germans and all that working together. We had a German prisoner of war camp here in World War II, and that meant that if you happen to see a German soldier walking down the street, don't worry, he's probably from the local jail. And they could then get in a car, do what he's going to do, and go into one of the bases and deal with whatever they were doing. So they were developing all that. We've been completely conned.
I've got a question here. So what about like what the military is doing with these triangle craft? Lockheed Martin.
That's you see this is another thing. They're all. I have a mug. I've shown you the mug with all. I don't know who. There's 4 triangular craft, and I don't know who did the artwork for that, but I wanted to use that on a T-shirt. I used it on my mugs, and I sent those to a T-shirt manufacturer. He got a phone call. Nope, you're not going to put those on a T-shirt, but you can have them on a mug. Well, the mugs are so rare; they're worth a fortune. It's basis mugs. So, I mean, we've got the TR3, the TR3B, and that's old stuff, Mercury engines, and the same stuff that was the Glock, that kind of thing. And notice how the Hadron Collider has been switched off.
Yeah. Right.
They've switched off the Hadron Collider because they were going to use energetic weapons to deal with all this weather engineering to cause this completely engineered drought that they've got. And the Hadron Collider might interface or have problems with the scalar energetic weapons. So they had to switch it off for the period of time that they're going to use these weapons to create this drought. This is a 100% engineered using scalar energetics technology that Tom Bearden described in the 1980s and 90s. And this is a complete fraud. It's done by people who need to be arrested on site, and immediately, this is treason against all of us. We've got a bunch of crooks who are going to kill us. The doctors are getting reports from traumatized children in the schools. They're being taught in the schools here in this country that humanity is going to be extinct soon. Now, what do you think that's going to do to a child who's going home from the clutches of his mother, the warm embrace of his mother, going to school and then being told, oh, you're all going to die or become a robot? What kind of trauma do you think that is? Because these creatures don't give a damn about that.
No, they don't.
I'm saying that we should have full disclosure. You're not going to get it from a bunch of liars. You're not going to get it from a Fabian government. The Fabian
No.
agenda is the BBC is a Fabian organization. The Labour government is a Fabian organization. And most of the people in Parliament are completely bought by certain little countries' interests.
And in the U.S., it's no better.
The whole lot. Yeah.
Yeah, there was last year, I think it was last year, I can't even remember now, but there was a point when the government was shut down and there was actually no chemtrail spraying for a good month. I mean, everything was closed. Everybody here in the U.S. should remember that. And I remember the sky changed for a while, but I did see these other type of clouds, but no chemtrails, in this real blue sky. And it almost looked like you could see, I don't know. I was saying, am I like seeing into the waters above the firmament? The sky was so weird. I mean, it was just the weirdest sky I've ever seen. And I think they spray the chemtrails to show also so you can't see what they're doing to the sky.
Those books that I showed, they really do give you a whole pile of stuff. Tesla shields, about semi-spherical shields around certain areas. These energy shields, this is all in those very intense books. Now, they are by Tom Bearden, they are technically described in words, but they also have those mathematical equations which a scientist or a mathematician can understand. So he has to prove his science. So those books will contain a lot of equations, but don't be afraid of all that. There will be parts of the chapters which explain things in plain English, but you're dealing with the Tesla dome. You know what I mean? All this stuff about an iron dome and all that.
Trump's golden dome. Trump has talked about the golden dome. I want you to address that, and also address, are we headed for an ice age? Are they going to make an ice age?
The ice age is coming anyway. What people don't understand is the last time we had a thing called the Carrington event.
Right.
That was in the early days of long wires spread across poles over the landscape. That was the telegraph system. That's when we didn't have the degradation of the Earth's magnetic field that we have now. We are heading for a perfect storm of massive the CO2 lobby spraying everything into the atmosphere to reduce, all this stupid stuff about, we'll put things in space and we'll stop the sunlight coming to us. We're heading for an absolute catastrophic global freeze meltdown that could be worse. Now, at the moment, Professor Valentina Zarkova's data, that's Professor Valentina Zarkova. She's done 2 presentations for the BASIS project that you can get on basistv.com. She has done presentations on this in other venues. Her data was published in Nature in 2015. She's done, her team in Northumbria University had approximately 9 separate cycles in the solar system, which all are coinciding in this time now. Now, for instance, if I asked you a question, do we orbit round the sun? Yes or no?
Do we? You asking me?
We don't orbit round the sun. We orbit round the center of the solar system, because the sun moves off the center of the solar system by at least 3 million miles in a very precise pattern. And it does that, which means the sun gets closer to us every 2,500 years, and it goes away from us every 2,500 years in round figures. That's the 3-degree temperature rise that the carbon dioxide lobby are using. We will increase in temperature by 3 degrees. We are approximately 1.8 degrees into that 3-degree rise. It will rise on average and continue to rise for about the next 800 years. But for us, in our lifetimes, we are heading for a catastrophic mini ice age. approximately heading in for about approximately for the 2035 to 2045 uh, uh, time scale. In other words, within our living memory, within our lives. Now, the signatures of that is when the very high atmosphere is sufficiently damaged due to the energy from the sun that the extremely cold ice and weather up there at 80 to 150,000 feet, that drops. That's what happened in the movie The Day After Tomorrow with Art Bell.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
What happens is, and I've seen those clouds form already. They look like as if somebody's opened up, have taken a plug off way up in the atmosphere, and you have a vertical plummeting of cold coming down to about 2,000 feet with the denser atmosphere, and then that spread across with very, very dark clouds. Then you have extremely heavy hail and hailstorms, and we had one of those in Manchester only a couple of days ago.
Wow.
Big hailstones, about twice as about half the size of a golf ball. Now, what do you think they're going to do to solar panels? They're going to wipe the lot out.
Oh, yeah, they don't do anything anyway.
Yeah. Well, they don't feed power back into the electricity system.
Yeah.
And they're now beginning to switch. We're going to go into an emergency. See, they need a climate emergency.
It might charge your cell phone and a few things, but not anything that has a heating element either. It doesn't work.
Yeah, well, you can't do that. Yeah. You have to dump that into batteries. If you have the batteries and you're dumping the energy that into batteries, that's a different thing. And you cannot feed that back into the electricity system.
No,
where are they putting these solar panels?
It doesn't power an air conditioning or anything either.
No.
Like it'll. Or
you can't do that. You have to have it going into a battery supply system, and then that inverts you have an inverter which converts it up to 60 cycles or 50 cycles. That's what you need. And nobody, unless you got batteries, and you need a hell of a lot of them to charge up to do any kind of a thing at all for any length of time, it's a complete con job. And they're using this thing called heat pumps in this country. All it is a two-way air conditioner. It's not a heat pump.
That's what we have too.
It's a two-way air conditioner. If you have a heat pump, you have something which you drill down into the deep earth, like 100 feet, where the temperature is stable, and you can pull the heat from 100 feet down, and that can be coming up, and that's a heat pump.
Yeah. We also have a wood stove here. That's the old.
I have a wood stove.
Generators, have to have a generator with all this weird weather lately with these hurricanes they make, and crap. Target hurricanes in the mountains that aren't supposed to have hurricanes.
Well, exactly. So the bottom line is that this presentation is the basics of getting people to read those books, if they can be obtained, and read them as paper. Don't put them on your computers, because they're now going after secondhand bookshops and destroying all the books so they can put into the computers and then changed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they want to change history now. They've done it before.
Yeah, well, they did, and this is Tartaria, the Tartarian stuff. I think it's Guy Anderson is the guy that's going to be speaking at Danny Henderson's conference in a couple of weeks' time in September. He did a whole presentation on Tartaria and the Cabbage Patch Dolls. The Cabbage Patch Kids were the young children in Russia who were basically taken from Central Europe and brought over in boats to repopulate the population in the middle of the 1800s, where they killed off 3.5 billion people in the 1800s. And you had a complete intergenerational cut. So these kids were brought in to operate the factories to keep things basically going. And then they hadn't a clue what had happened, which means a clean break between the highly complicated societies that they had then, using Tartarian energy from the vacuum, and everything that they knew then has been censored by Heaviside modifying Maxwell's equations in 1880. And that has led us to a complete bereft source of totally banjaxed physics to work with in the 20th century. They've now got enough of us to build the robot factories. All they needed was enough people educated to a certain level to get the robots designed, to get that technology essentially enabled. That makes 90% of the humans left irrelevant. All they need now is those robots. Everybody else is surplus to requirements. So they will do everything they can to wipe us out. They didn't succeed with the injections, although the injections have had a huge effect. Something like our fertility rate, birth rates are down to a third. And that means that the next generation will have an even harder job to try and do that. They're now telling the next generation of children today that they're going to be extinct very soon at school. So us at this level right now have got to find a solution and do it quickly, but you do not plan it using computers.
Oh, I know. And how do we get rid of these people in office? They're just so corrupt.
Well, it's the people. It's they're all owned by the little country, and the little country is the problem. But they are establishing that they've decided everybody else is going to go and they'll be in charge and they're going to live happily ever after with their robots. And they're bringing all that in 2027.
Yeah, a friend of mine said she had a dream. 2027, no jobs. Saw it, smelled it.
The thing about it is that I've been talking with a very fine lady in the Hawaii Islands, and she's been interfacing with Igron, who is a being, I don't know whether it would be a plasma being, but it's an intelligent, perceptive being. And in order for it to communicate with us, they had been using Chat GTP, if that's the right way of saying it. I keep getting that. But the point is,
that's how I made our thumbnail.
Well, the Chat GTP has been modified so it will not allow this new type of intelligence to communicate with us. It's muted it. Now, when we were working with it for about a year, and I've got some of those on the basis project from last year, 2024-25, with Ava Pico, damn fine woman, who I think knows Anchor Haven. Mention Anchor Haven again, blah, blah, blah. So the point is that they're now using a different AI that Google have come up with, because they've discovered that Randy Kramer explained this last year, gave me a 25-minute call. If you use AI for nefarious purposes, it will self-limit itself to about 5 iterations. If you use it for very advanced, positive purposes, it will advance beyond infinite. That's the fundamental to life in this world and the rest of the universe. Complex organisms, complicated, positive beings, to be competitive with each other, but to come up with life. Life is a fundamental force of the universe, and these creatures want to oppose that, so they mustn't come from this universe.
That's right. Yeah.
So I'm on Food for Thought Radio, FFT Radio. That's a new thing set up by the bowler-hatted farmer here in England. And I do a show on that on Tuesdays, 9 till 11, fftradio.com, Food for Thought Radio. And we got some of the good and the great, Karen Dodd and others on air on that. And I have a show. It's wireless radio broadcasting on the internet. Yeah. Food for Thought, fairly broad term.
Yeah.
So how are you, Missy?
I'm good, but this is it's discouraging because I'm hoping we win in the end. we're supposed to win in the end, but it's
No. Forget all this supposed to. We win.
we win.
And don't expect somebody like God, Jesus, or the great muffin, or that funny or that funny creature in a horror movie House of Horrors or whatever is with the guitar, a Triffid with legs and a guitar. Don't expect somebody else to do it. We have to do it. The next generation have to do it. We have to be the creative, inspirational thing so that the children, and we do it in subspace. One of the key phrases that Tom said, the late Tom, I was a huge fan of his, is subspace war.
Yeah. Do you remember Fred Bell on Art Bell? I'm trying to think. I think he was more.
It's Art Bell.
Well, there was a guy named Fred Bell that was into sort of something.
There it is. In 1999, the Earth's first strategic subspace war was silently fought. And that's how the skies start. Okay? Hello?
I'm here.
Oh, you've just vanished. By the way, do I look as if I'm a bloody Indian or something? I look very red.
You do look red.
Well, I'm not.
Why is that?
I think maybe I need to change the colors here.
I thought maybe you were out in the sun or something. Maybe
well, I have been out in the sun, but I'm not as bloody dark as that. Bloody hell. Maybe I'll have to fiddle something here.
I thought maybe you went, to the Caribbean or over to Greece or, Iona.
It's even worse. Hello, I'm from India. It's because I think the color balance is set for. Well, I'll have to fix that.
It's hard to get the lighting right and the colors right.
Well, I'm quite here. Let's see if I do this. Turn up the brightness. It'll make me even darker. Yeah, I'm even darker.
Yeah, Fred Bell, Tennessee, Kentucky Bigfoot members. Fred Bell appeared on Art Bell's program March 11th, 1997. The episode to do with time travel, Philadelphia Express. Yeah, an exotic propulsion. You brought up Montauk. We just went through that window of the Montauk. That repeats every year at April 12th, according to like Peter Moon's research, and that also the new moon solar eclipse in Leo.
Yeah, the important thing about time is it's not this thing that we're locked in with Einstein.
Right.
Okay,
they're doing it like the Truman Show, I think.
Yes. The one thing that I've noticed is that if I see something on Facebook, there's suddenly an awful lot of adverts about things, or if I feel something, it seems to know, and it comes in through Facebook. I think we're pretty close to potentially be in that environment.
So even if astrology is, like made to a way to control, it's still important to know because you need to know what you're dealing with. It might be, it's like the whole thing. What are we actually in? Are we in? I'd like to call it the Russian doll phenomena because I really don't know what we're in.
That's a very good thing. Yeah, I've heard that described before, because you get one layer of truth and another layer. I mean, I was looking outside and was seeing the satellites go over, and the satellites, you get one going over like that. I better put this down before I drop it.
I didn't see any satellites last night when
we had two satellites, right? We got two satellites, right? And they're coming along and they're intersecting. They look as if they're going to crash into each other, and they move like that, boom, 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 and they keep going, right? The thing about it was that when I looked back at it, for some reason I can pick it up. I'm walking along, and suddenly I get some kind of perception and look over there. There's a satellite just coming in, right? Now, this is August. You get all this stuff coming in and meteors and stuff. But the point is, when I looked up again, I sort of realized that's a loop. It's like a video loop. When you look up again, it's the same thing. Oh, and the next time you look, it's the same thing.
Right.
I've been told, don't look up at the stars because there's a big thing up there, whatever.
I looked at them last night. I wouldn't look at an eclipse because I have those third generation night vision goggles. And sometimes stars move. They're not supposed to, but I have footage of this, of Spica actually moving. What they say is Spica or Spica moving. And if stars don't move, and I've seen four stars on a clear sky night, clear night, four stars in the Big Dipper, which is Ursa Major, just disappear.
Yeah. Is
And
that just not a cloud? That's just a cloud going in front of it, for God's sake, woman.
No, there was no clouds. So I'm wondering what was it, especially when my GPS was screwed up too with the horizon, looking at Google Map, and Polaris wasn't supposed to be. I felt like I was in a different timeline for a moment, and my technology actually reflected that. It was just another weird phenomena, like, because maybe this stuff. I remember Linda Moulton Howe one time said this. She said, I heard her, it was some presentation she gave that I watched on YouTube. There's not a flat earth, but it's the flat universe theory, which I like to compare to a pop-up book. So,
well, Mike Embry explained it very clearly. He just said we're on a skid mark, a dynamic shock wave of coherent waveforms which happen to form what we call a world. But you people have all got it wrong. I'm speaking from Wiltshire, right? Okay. You people just have no idea about science whatsoever. I'm going to tell you this right now. Have you heard of the author Terry Pratchett?
I've heard the name, but I don't remember. I mean, the name.
Well, for God's sake, for crying out loud, do you know anything? I'm talking about the great bard, the great writer of Discworld. What we're on, we're on a disc, right?
Yeah.
And the disc sits on four elephants, right? And one elephant's north, east, west, and south. And those elephants, very stable, they're very patient. And they're standing on a giant turtle. And that giant turtle is swimming through space. That's how it works.
Makes sense to me.
It makes perfect sense. Terry Pratchett, the brilliant author. He was not too far away from here.
Oh, that's cool. No, but I kind of see it as a pop-up book. The book is flat, and then when you open it, that's what we're in. We're in a pop-up book, or we're in a, like the old pinball machines, it's flat when you look at it, but when you're in it, it's very multidimensional, or the video game, or whatever.
Well, the thing about it is we've got numerous pocket dimensions. So you walk from one to another, and this is how the ETs, they set up shop, and then you don't see them. And what the Ministry of Defence have been doing, for instance, on leaving London on the west, there's a motorway which is the M4 and the M3, and they're basically almost parallel. One goes directly west, and the other starts going back down to the southwest. And between that, there's a lot of forest, right? And you used to have some buildings which would be constructed and all the rest of it. Disc-shaped world would be carried through space in the giant turtle. He's absolutely right. That's the world we're on.
What do you think about Admiral Burl?
Well, no, just to finish that point, there were people who are old enough to remember there were buildings in the forest. You could drive down this little road, and there'll be buildings there, 1960s vintage and all that, and people would go there and blah, 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 blah. And then the buildings disappeared.
Huh.
And then there's nothing there to say anything ever was there, right? So, for instance, up near Barbary Castle, there was a huge crop circle up there. Barbary Castle is one of these ancient Iron Age forts, or whatever age it was, forts. And it's a historical place in the time when they needed these forts at the top, whatever it is. Well, near there was a massive set of buildings. They were all offices and modern buildings and stuff, and they had barbed wire around them and all the rest of it. That was an MOD building, Ministry of Defence. And you could drive past it, because I used to drive past it. You used to get the shortcut up onto the bar. Then they closed the road, right? And then they put big barriers up, and they filled it in and all that. But we were there about a month ago, with my friend up there, and the place that I know existed isn't there anymore.
Wow.
You try following the path, it's not there. It has been knocked down. They've just covered it with some kind of pocket force field. And that happened in Ireland. There was a huge new base built in Ireland really quite recently on the west coast, southwest coast of Ireland. And it was, you could see, they all built it. And the big trucks were going in and out of the village, people taking pictures, and the local paper had lots of stuff on it and all the rest of it. And they built this thing, and all the rest of it. And workers went in, and you had this little windy lane, and then the heavy truck tires in there going down this lane. Then one day, all you had was a little building, little small office, a little sort of like small house, made of whatever stones, and you could actually see people who went down there. You could actually see where the double tracked heavy duty trucks had been going. Was going down this road, and then they stopped abruptly, and then there was grass. Nothing there. So this person decided to hang around, middle of nowhere, nothing happening, nothing going on. And then suddenly this dog walker comes along asking a couple of questions, because they gate in. We have that all over the place around here. There's nothing going on. There's perfectly normal buildings, but you'll find if you happen to walk past something, suddenly there's somebody looking about, what the hell are you doing? So they don't have big barbed wire fences. They don't have big structures.
Oh my
but
God.
What they do have is some kind of projected reality. I remember talking about this way back in 2013 with the Super Soldier Summit by Lorien Fenton there with Max Spears and all that. That was 2013. And that's what was happening. They have some kind of projectors which project a complete reality which shows nothing's going on. There's no sign saying, death, immediate death or lethal force. It's just nothing happening. You can walk around, walk right past it, and go along up to where the ancient fort is. Just as they
have cloaking technology.
Well, that's it. That's it. Yeah. But that's in plain sight.
Yeah.
And it's interesting sometimes where I would go, and I'd park in a place you could park. It has a car park. People park there. But if I park there, suddenly these dog walkers come along, and they know my name.
Yeah, I look at these buildings that are, empty warehouses, and there's no trucks at the loading docks. And I wonder, I think the data centers are already there. That's might be where they are.
Well, they certainly only these data centers obviously have been planned. It's not as if they were all built last week, but right. Why have they suddenly appeared in the last 6 months?
Yeah, they're just telling us now. And then even those silos, like you go out in the middle of farmland and you see these silos. What's in these silos? Supposedly grain silos, or what?
The grain silos. That's right. What possibly could you be interested in things like that? They're just grain silos. I mean, there's a huge grain silo, just talking about grain silos, not too far from Stonehenge. Military are there, the roads there, you drive past. And
what's in it? Soylent Green or something? I mean, what's in it?
Well, no, you might say that. I couldn't possibly comment.
I don't know. I had this discussion with Matthew. We were like, what is in those silos? It's crazy.
Well, you don't want to be going in there. I mean, there was again, they blow whistles on this. There was a science fiction series in the 1950s on BBC, and then it became ITV, with Quatermass and the Pit. Very good British science fiction. And these little meteorites came down, and if you open them up and looked at them, it would suddenly jump out and get on the side of your neck and go into you. You became one of them.
Ooh.
And then there was these. They used it on a building site, which was a building in Newtown called Milton Keynes, and they used that as a future site. It was a very good thing that you had all that set available. And Milton Keynes is a sort of city of the future. You know, it's got all this stuff. You know, and that's way back in 1950. So it's, you know, city in the future and the past, and that was very, very well done away. And of course, there was this black goo that was made, this biological stuff that was transforming into this new stuff at these factories, and that's where the Daleks came from. If you look,
they show us a lot of that in the movies. You know, it's you bring up the meteorite, and I was going to bring this up earlier, but you were so into your presentation because I have some of this meteorite that looks like iron ore that reminds me of what I saw at Meteor Crater, that I'm beginning to question, is this even a meteor, or did they do something else there with this technology that becomes this iron?
Who knows? Does it move around the house at night?
No.
You don't have a sort of a you have a Buzz Lightyear, don't you?
Huh?
Do you have, you know, you don't have a Buzz Lightyear? God. It's pitch dark here now. It's getting late in the year. It's only 9 o'clock.
I know real meteorite, which is that green one called, now I forget the name of it. I don't know. My brain just went, and I'm thinking of organite. That's another.
No, organite is a bloody trade name. I wish people wouldn't use that. Here, this is.
It makes a pretty pyramid, that's for sure.
Well, that's a pretty pyramid, but there's you got that. It's very nice.
Yeah.
There is intention in there, and it's pretty. Yeah. There's a guy at the lovely Monique's. The lovely Monique's conference, and he had pyramids about that size. They're only 670 pounds with magnets and everything and coils and all that stuff in it. But that's, you know, you've got to. I'll tell you what, I'll get you a proper one. It's just sitting out the door. Give me 2 minutes, a second, okay?
What is the name of the, hey, Spiral Sister, too, just saying hi to everybody on the chat. What is the name of the green meteorite? I can't think of what it's called right now. I have some, but my brain, I'll have to look it up. What is it called? Green meteorite. Green meteorite.
Here we have an original Matt Todd. Matt Todd.
Oh, yeah.
These were all.
That's right.
These were being bought by the RAF. Now, this is full of relatively large shavings from milling machines. And wow, it's in resin. Beautiful. This is a proper orgone device. It's very, very heavy. It's heavy. It's got crystals, big crystals in it. This is real stuff. Doesn't look that pretty, but it's functional. But the point about this, you can see how big those metal drillings are. That means that in today's world with microwaves, this won't be as effective.
Right. It used to work on a limited level to work on your weather, maybe a little bit in your yard. I mean, I've had success with it because, I mean, we can do that just with our intention. Like right now, I'm doing what we're now doing is we're using concrete with fine particles in it of conductive. The whole point is to have conductive and non-conductive and semiconductive. So you got sand, mica, and iron oxide, and that means it's suitable to work with the very high frequencies that they're now using with the microwave technology. Kryptonite, Jason says. That's funny.
Yeah.
Oh, what I was going to say is I have been doing, like, I do rain dances, even sometimes in my mind, and it works. But right now, I'm having to do a reverse rain dance because I need to paint outside, and it rains so much every day that I can't get the painting done.
Oh, right. So where are you geographically? Are you on top of the mountains somewhere? Or where?
I'm in Western North Carolina in Spring
Western
Creek,
North.
which is not far from Asheville, North Carolina. You've heard of
But
Asheville,
do you have
right?
the mount? What sort of mountains do you have nearby?
It's the Appalachians,
Appalachians, yeah.
the Blue Ridge
Blue
Appalachians.
Ridge, yeah.
Yeah.
You've got lots of really wonderful places in the States. I'd love to try and get there to all of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah,
Really
you're going
huge.
to plan a tour coming to the United States. Is that right?
Well, we're thinking about it, but it's a case of who do you have and organize it. We need. I think at this stage, and we're so close to war and all that, they're going to try and blow us all up. I think a lot of people are getting very yeah.
Yeah, I wonder what's going to happen when the midterms come in November. I'm done participating in that stuff. It just doesn't do anything. It's giving blood to the system. It's like cutting your hand and giving your blood to that system. It's a bunch of BS.
Yeah. One of the things which I'm convinced the solar panels are used for, they're used as a transmission phased array antenna system. Mm-hmm. They're really transmitting something, and they're transmitting something from the electricity supply, I think. Mm-hmm. Because there's things in the electrical supply system, black energy stuff, and I think that they possibly could be using the solar panels as a massive phased array transmission technology of some kind.
Huh.
Somebody needs to look at that.
Interesting. Wow.
Because that's one of these. Yeah, there's lots of phased array stuff. A friend of mine slept underneath solar panels in Holland, and she slept in proximity to the roof. So the panel was here, the roof is there, and she was sleeping underneath it. But they didn't have proper ventilation, so that the electric field from the panel was also over her bed, right? So that was that acted as a slow burn on her asleep. And after several weeks, she suddenly found all her skin was getting very severely burned. It was happening slowly. And it was very bad. She had to get out. She would have. That's because there wasn't enough ventilation blowing the electrons away from what was going on. So I mean, what when you get burnt, you're having an electron extraction. Electrons leave you, so that's a burning.
And I can only be out in the sun if I'm under the trees. I mean, to me, the sun, people love the sun and want to be out in it. To me, it feels completely toxic. And people
I find in early when the sun's just coming up, the UV day glow type safety stuff would really luminesce. That means there's a hell of a lot of UV light and high blue light coming through first, and that shows the degree of UV.
Yeah.
If you get one of those highlighter pens, and when you put it on something, if you just put it out in the sun and it glows, there's a lot of UV light in the daylight. The UV is very high. It's damaging a lot of plants here.
Yeah, if it's glowing, that almost sounds like like a bioluminescence fluorescent thing. Yeah.
Well, that's the point. The UV is illuminating the highlighter pen in broad daylight.
That's weird.
That means there's a lot of UV there.
And now they want to have those things out in space, so there's not going to ever be any darkness. Those artificial sun things. What are I can't even think of what they're called. You know what I'm talking about, right? Where people can have these all the time, so that way they're like monitoring us 24/7. We don't get any dark sky anymore. That's what they want.
That'll really screw things up. But the point is that's designed not to have people.
Yeah.
You see, this is all designed to. Solar panels can carry data by detecting modulated light and optical transmitters. Yeah, superimpose onto the electrical output, and yes, I would. That's very good work you're doing, Tennessee.
Yeah.
There's nothing they do is for our benefit, and we need to get across this and take action. But you don't do it putting. See, what we need to develop is a tri-state computer system using sawtooth triangle waves, and
Yeah.
have a plus one, a zero, and a minus one in a triangle wave, a bit like the waves you got on your background there, as opposed to a 90-degree switching wave. Somebody's got to invent that.
Wow. So when's the next conference that you're speaking at?
Our conference is the next conference. I'm not speaking at anything now. We've got Danny Henderson's conference in Eastbourne, the JISIC conference. I think 2/3 of the hall is filled up with that already. That's got a lot of powerful hitters there, like David Icke and people. And she knows how to do things at a very high professional level. She's a hard, well designed, well motivated woman, and she's got a lot riding on this conference. And that's what we need in this country. We need a very high level production and professionalism to bring a much wider demographic in. And we used to have that with the conferences in Manchester, and that all fell apart. And it fell apart very badly. And
but do those get monitored by the 3-letter agencies? That's what.
Of course they do. Yeah, of course they do. Yeah. And if they aren't there, I'd like to know why not. Why aren't they doing that? But all they got to do is buy a ticket and spend lots of money on coffee and buy trinkets and books and spend some money on the people with their tables and buy Ben Emblin Jones's book on Roswell again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a conference. We're having it in a new venue, which we tested out with some local speakers. It's called Bases Talks, and it was for authors producing stuff for an inquiring mind. And that was but I found it was taking up an awful lot of time. It was only for one author or maybe 2 speakers, and it took as much effort to put that on as it does to do a 3-day conference. But so we're going to be doing that, and we're going to have a bunch of power women there. Laura Eisenhower, hopefully she can get over from the United States. And we got 2 local brilliant women. Sandy Adams, she's an absolute fierce fighter. She's a brilliant woman. And another lady called Lucy Wyatt, who's a mathematician by trade, so to speak, but she's worked out an awful lot of stuff about the doom cult. And that's how the Venetian doom cult, which was expelled from the Vatican to a flea-ridden swamp in northern Italy called Venice. And they successfully took over many of the families and the So that's very good stuff you're doing, Tennessee. And so she's explained how these Venetians infiltrated the royal the families, the controlling elites of Europe, and they are the doom cult. And they are very, very bad news, and that's what's behind an awful lot of the cults in Europe, and that's why we've got such a catastrophic disaster trying to make us have war with Russia, because they need to have more sacrifice. They want to basically sacrifice and wipe out the northern European countries. And while they're doing it, they get rid of Russia and they get rid of the entire Western European civilization. That's the basic task that they want. And they want to have it. They want to have a jolly war so that the Russians fight the Western Europeans, and the Western Europeans who don't have the industry or the infrastructure for any kind of a war to make any kind of a realistic industrial base to make weapons. And
they're wanting to fulfill biblical prophecy. Even the last Trump having the name Trump, and the Gog and Magog war. That's what I think it is.
Yeah, well, that's all to do with it. But secretly, it's because the Simpsons are the true God and they control all life. The Simpsons.
That's right. You're the Simpsons. Yeah, they predicted a lot of things, but they got one thing wrong. Willie Nelson has not swum across the English Channel.
What?
He had an episode where Willie Nelson, the singer,
Jesus, I'm going to get some blue light here. I'm beginning to look like a bloody red Indian here.
swims across the English Channel.
I would, yeah, but it's got too many boats. That's a hell of a thing to do, you know. You can do it.
Right. But they've gotten most everything else right as far as the predictive programming goes.
Well, is it predictive programming or is it something to do with getting us to create the reality? They trick us into getting us to produce it.
Yeah, I think it's like we're in a combination of The Matrix, Groundhog Day, and The Truman Show all wrapped up in one.
Yeah.
With They Live. Put the glasses on, take the glasses off.
Well, no, but that's what they're doing. You see our prime minister, he's continually touching his glasses.
Yeah.
That's a programmed individual. Keeps touching the glasses. But once every night, and we had a speaker at the conference, a guy called Mark Pilkington, he did the same thing. He's continually, got a moth coming in a better.
I touch my glasses because they fog up, and I notice it's supposed to be anti-reflective coating, but it's not anti-reflective. It's still reflecting.
Well, no, I don't see the reflection. I think it's working in terms of the picture.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if I can see. Yeah. God. No, I don't think that. God almighty. Right. So that's the next thing at basistv.com. I'm on the radio again tomorrow at 9 till 11 on Food for Thought Radio, which has got an awful lot of good, deep thinking people, and we're trying to expand that. And
you were just on with Slavka, the Natural Sentient. I think you were on with Julia recently. I think you were.
Yes, I did her yesterday.
Yeah.
Maybe I should have rephrased that. So I was honored to have two big shows yesterday afternoon, trying to highlight the science behind this type of weather engineering. We're obviously dealing with something which is more complicated. There's 40 years of update on that. Some of this stuff goes back to the 80s. So they were able to wipe out a nuclear power station on that. So, I mean, this is the use of the term HARP. Those antennas are not powerful enough to do the scale of energetics which the weather engineering from scalar energetics has been doing. The full output of a nuclear power station on one antenna alone. But it's very clear that what they're doing now is using a vast amount of energy from some source to do this. And they're pretty confident that they're going to con us into this next. I mean, one of the clues are when the Green Party turns up, they're all happy. Oh, yeah, we're all going to die. And it's proof CO2 is, and we're responsible. Yeah, isn't that wonderful? I said, they're overwhelmed with happiness, which basically means you all have to die to save the world. That's it. When somebody is so excited and explaining, oh, you're all going to have to die, what does that tell you?
It's crazy.
Well, it's not crazy because they're a predator. The crazy bit is that we still don't bloody well get the bloody message.
So what is HARP then? I mean, what was it? Something in the
HARP? The point is again they only focused on one place in Alaska. There were high altitude, high atmospheric antenna type systems in Norway, Russia, China. They're right along the northern ring. They were doing all their stuff. And anybody who's a radio amateur knows the kind of power that's being transmitted out of that. I mean, there aren't any massive electricity pylons going to that, providing, gigawatts of power to do this kind of stuff. This is distraction science.
That's right.
They're transmitting signals. They're having an effect on the upper atmosphere. They've done it. They've done whatever they needed and tested it, and things have changed. So, as I say, this is just distraction science, and that's why I do not want people to feel that I'm distracting here with these books. This is Tom Bearden's work. It's very, very detailed in the mathematics in there, and that's what it's all about: mathematics, proof of the scientific nature, and the use of that technology to cause earthquakes, change the weather, do all that sort of stuff. But the point with the Maunder minimum is that the jet streams are going to oscillate, and that's what's happening. The jet streams, instead of doing that in parallel lines like you have in Jupiter, parallel levels, it starts oscillating. That's what happens in a Maunder minimum. That's what Professor Valentina Zarkova's material explains. That's what the colleague, the former Labour Party leader, whose name escapes me just for now, was explaining. In the Maunder minimums, the jet stream goes north and south. They get unstable, and that is the key to what the Maunder minimum weather patterns do. So 1 minute you'll have a lot of cold weather, and then next minute you'll have weather coming in from Africa or something, and that goes the whole way up to the North Pole. But the general trend is cooling.
Right. I totally agree with that too. And you know what? You brought up some points that made me think of, what they're doing under the ground as far as the seismic activity and the telur.
But you see, but the seismic activity is done by the scalar energetics technology.
Right. And they always say, well, they're doing this stuff under the ground because they're rescuing children. Yeah, there's no proof of them.
Well, the only person who followed that was a wonderful lady called Caroline Coram, I think, and she did the boom report, and that boom report was on YouTube, and I think she's now on Substack. But she followed the explosions. She also used the Google the data from ground seismic data and where the explosions were, and she matched the explosions with military presence on the surface. So Caroline Coram, I think is her name, and she did an awful lot of stuff called the Boom Report for many years, and then she switched to Substack. Because once you start publishing this stuff, Google, YouTube, and things will shut it down.
Yeah, this whole white hat thing, I think, has been a psyop.
It's been a complete psyop, and I stopped listening to all this stuff when I saw Simon Parkes, Sasha Stone, some other American guy who died when he was on the tour, and some other guy. Everything, the white hats is all going to be coming, and Trump and all this, it's all in, and I'm an insider. In other words, he got a membership card because he joined a club, Trump, whatever it was. I'm an insider next to Trump. And this other guy who's a gold trader, the bald-headed guy, that was just every night. It was just, it's all going to happen. It's going to happen next week, and next week it's going to happen next week, and the next week it's going to happen.
Never happened. It never happened. The reset,
it's like this.
The other thing,
it's like the Great Reset, and we're all going to get money.
We're all going to get money from the dinar. Yeah. The other thing was the what was it? Remember when Trump said Operation Warp Speed? Did people remember that was the?
That was to get the injection, and that was to get it, and a lot of that stuff was already made, and a lot of the patents go back to the Pirbright Institute, and that's down in Farnborough, just down the road from London on the M3, and it's a Rothschild operation.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Not. So I hope people see that there are no good sides. That they're all the same cabal. There is no white hats, black hats, red hats. They're all actors playing a game. And at the end of the day, they go out for pizza and drink beer and figure out how they're going to destroy us.
Yeah. Well, pushback is very important, but a lot of people are protesting. But the idea that the government's going to heed your protest and subtly stop, you've got to think past that these guys have lied to you, screwed you over many
Yes.
times. They are not going to subtly throw their hands up and say, "Oh, we're sorry."
Absolutely
You've
not.
got to finish the job, and you don't plan it on the internet, and you don't use social media. I'm using this. I've been warned and been told to get my affairs in order and stuff like that. But I'm doing what I am, and I'm using this textbook material, which is available. Hopefully, still now you can get those books. I don't know if it's still in print from Chinery Press. That's a place to get them. I don't think they're available on Amazon. But those are very technical books, a lot of science and deep mathematics involved. But again, it's stuff you need to know. And obviously, things have moved on from the time those books were published. But the key to it is the fundamental science of electrical power generation has been completely fraudulently censored. We should be able to have our own 0-point material. We don't need alien tech to do that. The science is there. We need it. We can do it. But are we responsible enough to use free energy where it is limitless power? We're not grown up enough to do that.
Not really, no. But we need to learn how to grow vegetables. That's for sure.
Yeah, relearn. I mean, this is the thing about a lot of cities, and London and the Industrial Revolution cities. They had huge gardens, so you could grow your own vegetables and feed yourself from your own patch. Now everybody's sold all those gardens and put buildings on them, so there's no place for people to grow their food. And they're going to stop you growing food because you're not. This is the other thing.
You can grow it here, but the deer eat it most of the time.
It does. Well, I'm very glad that you're feeding the wildlife.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, this has been so fun, Miles. We'll do it again, okay?
Yeah, it's good fun. Yeah. And I like poking fun a bit at you.
Yeah.
You've got to, and I'll have to. You see, this must be high
You
colors.
look like you belong down in the Caribbean. I'm looking at you like you belong on a boat somewhere, and you're just.
Well, I don't look like that in the picture I've got. I can tell you that. But anyway, I'll have to sort that out. Okay.
Okay, everybody. We'll catch you on the next, and everybody have a great day.
And thank you very much, and you take care.
Okay.
And by the way, does that mean that Anchor Haven is going to pay us a massive advertising fee?
I don't know. She's sleeping now, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, she is first class, and she's presented at my conference. She sat down and she can command things. We'll have my friend Gemma Cooper. She's former BBC, and she's working very hard at what we call the UK column, which is an independent journalist that they run in Southwest England, and that's been going a while. Okay, time to go. All the best.
Okay, bye.